That being said, let's keep the movement moving on here. We want to continue our discussion about the ongoing genocide and the importance of speaking out and using whatever platform you have. And I have to say, we are again deeply honored to be joined here on the show by Liam Cunningham, who's known and loved to many of us, of course, from Game of Thrones, but also a longtime advocate for Palestine and someone who's been speaking up quite a bit over the past year during this genocide. Liam, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure to join you. Thanks very much for having me.
Well, the pleasure is all ours. And I guess I just wanted to ask, and, especially in the controversy of what we've seen about the young woman from Snow White, who's being pilloried now for having spoken out about Palestine, why is it important for you to use the platform you have when obviously there are a lot of people who are pushing against that kind of content, so to speak?
Well, first of all, you use the word platform, and in my moral code, whatever you want to call that, if you do have a platform, you're obligated to use it, especially where you see injustice. And I've tried to do that all along. I've had a platform gifted to me because of the success of the show and whatever. So on Instagram and obviously Twitter. And I need to be able to look in the mirror. If I don't want to dislike myself, and if I do nothing, I will despise myself. And I've been doing it for a long time. I mean, nobody ever noticed me until the show got rather big. But I have been on these marches for, I suppose, and obviously they're a lot more prevalent now for, probably 30 years or so. And when I was with Game of Thrones, I did some work with some others in the cast during the Syrian horror. And I was in Jordan and Greece with Syrian refugees. I've done northern Uganda, South Sudan, places like that, and then of course this abomination blew up, as we know, and that's where we are now. I'm a big and I despise injustice, and this is the worst injustice I've seen, I think, in my lifetime.
Liam, I have followed you. Obviously, I was a big fan of Game of Thrones, but you've been outspoken, like you said, on these things for a very long time. And I really do appreciate that, because I know in an industry, in the entertainment industry in particular, it is quite difficult to speak out specifically on Palestine. There's so much backlash. You have a lot to lose, very little to gain. So I'm just curious if you could maybe give us an idea of your background. Like, why do you have the politics you have? Why did you grow up in an anti-war family, like a leftist family? I don't know. Tell us about that.
I grew up on. It's because I'm Irish. And we had, and this is where there's hope for the Palestinians. Let's hope it doesn't go on as long in Palestine as it did in Ireland. We had the largest empire the world has ever seen, and they're still there. They're our next door neighbors, and we had 700 years of occupation and brutalism foisted upon the indigenous Irish people. So, and we've only, we're 100 years kind of independent. So we had it like as I say, 750 years. And also, while we were occupied, 1.5 million of our population, and the estimates vary, it may be way more than that, died from famine because the British were in charge of our country. They were the occupying force. And while our population was dying, there was 50 ships a day leaving Ireland to bring food to England. And we had another 1.5 million. It's why there's so many Irish in America. It's because to escape starvation and death, people had to get out of Ireland. So for anybody in Ireland not to have a huge amount of sympathy with the predicament that our Palestinian brothers find themselves in, it would be ludicrous for Ireland, the Ireland population. The government is something different, but the Irish population are very, very much behind the struggle of the Palestinians for self-determination and justice.
Well, that's actually, I think, an important point is how do you evaluate what the government's doing? I mean, we know there's been a very strong Palestinian solidarity movement there in the streets in Ireland, very consistently raising their voice. And it seems that there's some talk from the government, but it seems like it's mainly just a little bit of rhetoric around the edges.
Yeah, it's waffle. It's basically what it is. They've just adopted on 17th of January the IHRA definition,
Wow.
which is so surreal because the man, Kenneth Stern, who wrote it, said it's not to be used, as you guys know, not to be used in it. It was a working document, and he was aghast that it was being picked up. This is the man who wrote it, and I had bumped into the godlike figure of Francesca Albanese at the last
Mm.
march that we did last Saturday here, and she was saying that look, it's appalling, this the IHRA definition, and it's the I'm sure you guys know the Jerusalem Declaration was the declaration that she was backing regarding anti-Semitism. So I just find it astonishing. There are weapons coming through Shannon Airport that is which makes us contribute to this genocide. There is various talk on the ground in Ireland of the possibility of a court case against our own government as regarding complicity. So I mean, we don't know where that is. Early days on that one, but it's certainly been looked into, and we are not meeting up to our obligations with the ICJ and the ICC to do everything in Ireland's power to, at the very least, not assist this, well, alleged, as they say, legally alleged. Everybody, the dogs in the street know it's a genocide. But there is movement here. And we also had, just for your viewers and listeners, we had an appalling event taking place outside the government buildings. We have a wonderful group here called the Mothers Against Genocide, and they had a sit-down peaceful protest, and they were genuine. The people of Ireland are appalled at this. They were lifted, they were arrested, and put in vans. Some of them were strip searched when they were arrested. And there's also allegedly at this time there was on one of the ladies a cavity search, and these are people who just wanted to read out a letter and sit in protest at the front gates, and they were taken up. So we do hope what's happening in Germany is not going to fester and find its way across the Irish Sea into Ireland, but. The fight continues. And just one more thing. Your previous wonderful speaker said that the what's going on in the Middle East can't continue because the area deserves to succeed and flourish, and I completely agree with that. I think I'm not a cynical person. I'm optimistic about this fight, but this, as far as I'm concerned, what's happening here now in Palestine is a battle for the soul of the world. This is in my mind, and I try to separate myself in my mind. It's not about Muslims and Jews and Israelis and Palestinians. This is how we allow one group of people to treat another group of people. And all of that religious complexity needs to be removed from it and brought back to a human level. And the treatment and the disgusting behavior that the Palestinian population are subject to has got to stop, or the world goes down. If this impunity continues, it will set up a cancer around the world, and it has to stop.
I couldn't agree more. I like that. A battle for the soul of the world. It's very true. And, Liam, I want to ask you about the fact that, you do speak out. You always have. You don't seem to care what the consequences are, which is beautiful. But it's actually shocking to me that we can sit here and watch a battle for the soul of the world, the worst thing we've seen in our lifetimes, right? Just atrocity after atrocity, and so much impunity to the point where the people responsible are actually gloating about it because they know that there's no consequences. Meanwhile, the most influential people in the world, in the entertainment industry, have been silent. So it's like shocking when someone speaks out. It's like, oh my God, someone said something about the worst thing happening in the world right now. So I'm just curious if you could speak about that kind of pressure. There must be so much pressure people feel to just keep their mouths shut. Because I'm sure more people than actually speak out know that there's something horrific happening right now. You can't, it's really, really hard to ignore.
I completely agree. But somebody asked me this. It's extraordinary. Anytime I'm kind of on a chat about this, even I get the question, "Are you not worried about your career and stuff like that?" And it's the strangest thing. My kind of stock answer is, if I happen to be on some blacklist somewhere, believe me, the list that I have is a lot longer than the lists that I'm on.
Beautiful.
And I have no time for that. And as somebody succinctly put it the other day, is that if and you guys will be aware of this, but they said during World War II, the stock answer was, why, when asked why didn't you do something, was we didn't know. For a lot of people, that's a feasible answer and a believable answer. Not now. Your only answer can possibly be because I didn't care. And I've said it to a couple of friends. A friend of mine as a young kid. I think he's been 9 or 10 or something, and he's one of the many people who hasn't really stood up or said really anything about it. And I said to him, "What's going to happen in 10 years' time when your kid goes to college or whatever, and this thing comes up?" And it will, by that time, it will be seen as everybody, as a lot of people are saying. People say, we didn't think it was a genocide or whatever. The word is going around everywhere. And I said to him, what are you going to say when your kid says, "What did you do? What did you do at the time?" Because the internet doesn't forget. Social media is going to be there. And how are you going to stand and look at your kid in the eye when they're doing their history lessons or whatever it may be, or their social, and go, "This is what happened here"? Because I know what I do as a teenager and a bit of a rebel or whatever. What did you do during this? You were in the middle of it, because I know what I want to do if it was happening now. And you've got to have your answers ready. And that's what I said to him. Have you got your answer prepared? Because you want to start thinking about it now. And there's a lot of people in that position. I'm astonished at the cowardice of people who won't come forward, who use it's nothing to do with me. It most definitely is something to do with you. It's to do with everybody on this planet, that this behavior is unacceptable and should be stamped on. I mean, that's the important thing, is not to lose our humanity and to keep at it. And we just got to, we have to do it. If the world implodes, we've got to, as the world implodes, we've got to still scream about it, that this is absolutely wrong and intolerable. And the other thing I'm disgusted with is the media. They are the cowardice. There's a smell of cowardice, of death and cowardice of these people that will not speak up, that ran with the lies of the beheaded babies and lies of the multiple rapes, and just dived on that and splashed it across the front of their newspapers, and have painted themselves into a corner where they don't want to deal with the fact that it was all bullshit. And that just sickens me to the core. They won't even put their hands up and say, "Look, we got this wrong. We got behind a bunch of lies." They won't, broadcast or print about the Hannibal Directive being used. I mean, the IDF figures for Gaza fighters, the IDF figures are over 1,000 IDF killed. That's their figures on October the 7th. So what happened to all the people that they were holding hostage at that time when those fighters? I mean, this is just on a mathematical level. What happened to the people that they were trying to put into vans to use as hostages to get their own hostages back? How did these die? Where were these magic bullets that only killed the Hamas, the Al-Quds fighters, or whatever it may be? It's and they're swallowing it up. The Western media is just swallowing it up, and they are complicit. They are absolutely, the editors, the sub-editors, the publishers, and the owners are complicit in this genocide, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think we are in agreement with you, and we are, again, very honored that you were willing to give us some of your time. Liam Cunningham, we appreciate all the things you're doing, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much. Very nice to meet you guys, by the way. Big fans.
Absolutely. Same.
Such a pleasure. Same.